Hey, thanks for joining us on the Daily Drive. Hope your week is off to a good start. Man, I got to tell you, I love fall. I'm sitting here coming off a big victory from my football team. I'm sipping a pumpkin spice coffee thing. I'm wearing a hoodie, looking out the window at the changing leaves, and it is spectacular where I live. All creation declares the glory of God. Man, I love fall. My name is Breaux, by the way, and we have been looking at a few characters from the pages of the Bible that exhibit qualities where you might say, you know what, I might not be able to write like a Wikipedia type definition to what they have. I may not be able to define integrity, courage, kindness, or faithfulness, but I'll tell you this, I know it when I see it. Well, this guy's name has come up a few times in various discussions this fall, so I thought we'd take a look at him this week. His name is Nehemiah, and he is quite a leader. Let me ask you, who do you look up to as a leader? And can I also ask you, who looks up to you? And you say, well, me? Man, I'm no leader. I'm just an ordinary person. I may be a lot of other things, but I'll tell you right now, I'm definitely not a leader. You sure about that? Now, maybe you're not strategizing the next move for the globalization of your company, or maybe you don't sit on some board of directors or even in charge of organizing the cookout for the youth soccer league. But when it comes down to it, every one of us is a leader, because if you strip it all down, leadership at its most basic is simply influence. And we all influence those around us. We influence kids and friends and coworkers and family and neighbors. We all influence somebody. We are all leaders in some sense of the word. And you can walk through a local like Barnes and Noble bookstore and notice how many volumes have been written on the topic of leadership. I mean, just Google books on leadership. It's overwhelming. My own bookshelves at home are filled with books on leadership, but my favorite book on leadership is the book of Nehemiah. That was written about 425 BC. It's an absolute classic on effective leadership. And what I love about this story is that the leadership principles are not like spit out from a 6-part instructional digital series, complete with stats and pie charts. Rather, it's fleshed out in the life of this ordinary guy who tackles a massive project against incredible odds. Nehemiah is one of those guys that you look at and say, I may not be able to clearly define what real leadership is, but I know it when I see it, and he's right over there. Nehemiah is this plain, ordinary guy who is highly motivated to make a difference with his life. And I want to challenge you to take the time this week to read or maybe reread the whole story. It's right before the book of Psalms in the middle of the Bible, sandwiched in between the stories of Ezra and Esther. It's stirring and super motivating. And when you get done, you'll probably want to get in the car and head to Home Depot. You'll be knocking out walls and building a fence and cleaning out the garage, tackling some unfinished projects around the house. But more than any of that, you'll get to see leadership at its best. As I was reading through this again, I was thinking of all the things that leaders need to be, all the qualities that I'd like to see in myself. And chapter after chapter, you just see them fleshed out in this guy's life. And I'm telling you, whether you're a stay-at-home mom or a supervisor at your workplace, or maybe you're a coach or a teacher or a CEO of a huge company, you might be a small group leader, the captain of your team. You might be in charge of the night shift at the hospital somewhere. Wherever God has you right now, as a leader, wherever your sphere of influence might be, I believe these are some qualities in Nehemiah's life that all of us ought to embrace and embody. So I want to give you a few each day this week that kind of stood out to me. And the first one is this: truly great leaders have the courage to stare reality in the face. Truly great leaders have the courage to stare reality in the face. Like Nehemiah, they see the problem. They refuse to gloss over it. They don't pretend that things are better than they actually are. They don't sweep things under the rug. They are ruthlessly honest about reality. And they ask for help. In this story, the nation of Israel has been scattered and exiled from home for lots and lots of years. But now the people have been allowed to head back to their home and rebuild. But there's nothing really there. Tough conditions, totally exposed to enemies who want to once again capture and enslave them. And when Nehemiah hears about the shape of things back in his hometown of Jerusalem, that the walls are in rubble and the gates have been burned, he writes this in chapter 1. When I heard this, I sat down and wept. In fact, for days I mourned. fasted, and prayed to the God of heaven. Again, there's the humility that every great leader possesses, saying, God, we need you. God, I need you. The reality is things are a mess. And if I'm ever going to rebuild, you have to be involved. I'm telling you, that's the key to life. That's the key to rebuilding a life. All right, players, it's time for Double Jeopardy. The category famous rivers. The answer is the baby Moses was found floating in a basket on this Egyptian river. What is denial? I've learned that denial is not just a river in Egypt. Denial is what keeps you and me stuck. As long as we live in denial of a problem, as long as we deny reality, and we try to work the whole image management thing, pretending that everything's fine, really, as long as we try to hang on to our pride and fix things by ourselves, as long as we try to excuse and rationalize the condition things are, things will never change. And Nehemiah is honest about the mess. There's no denial of reality. There's no rationalization, no justification, no excuses, just, oh God, what a mess. I need you. And if I'm ever going to rebuild this, you have to be involved. And I've also noticed that not only do great leaders clearly see and acknowledge reality, they also, like Nehemiah, carry a burden to change that reality. They have a passion deep inside of them to make things better. Like Nehemiah, consumes them, not in an obsessive, unhealthy way, but in a way that says, you know what, this has to change. This just has to change. In Nehemiah chapter 2, he shows up to assess the situation personally. And I love how he doesn't ride in saying, here I come to save the day. He just secretly rides in at night. And in the moonlight, he personally takes a tour of the extent of the rubble and sees for himself just how bad it is. And then he goes to the city officials and says this, verse 17 of chapter 2, you know very well what trouble we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been destroyed by fire. Let's rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and let's end this disgrace. He's able now to speak the reality that he has seen to some other people, to share his burden and cast vision for the city and for the people. And he rallies some other leaders around him and says, it's been like this long enough. We've been complacent long enough. It's time to rise up and make this happen. And they get super inspired and say, we are in. So let me ask you, who might you inspire and rally today? Is there a need that you see? A problem that needs to be addressed, some excuses that just need to go, some blinders that need to be lifted, some apathy that needs to be confronted, because good leaders humbly and courageously face reality, and they carry a burden to change that reality. So I'm praying today that God will use you and me to do exactly that. We'll come back and pick this up tomorrow, and man, I hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.